So the primates are a diverse group, but they have opposable thumbs. They have usually, pretty big brains and complex social structures. Those are some of their traits. But what makes humans, we are primates, but what are some derived traits in us? Well, humans are permanently bipedal. That's something you don't see in the other groups. We stand on two legs, and that frees up our arms, right? Allowing us to do more with those thumbs. We have larger brains, and as far as we can tell, we are the only ones, at least mostly capable, of symbolic thought. Meaning we can think in words, we can think in different ways, in pictures and things like that. We have artistic expression. We manufacture and use tools. Now, I won't say that none of the other primates can do any of these, but we do it in a much stronger degree than other primates. We also have very reduced jaw muscles and bones, so we don't have the jaws that stick out as much, and they're not nearly as strong as our cousins in the primate world. However, still, our genome is 99% similar to that of a chimpanzee. However, 19 regulatory genes are different, and that's really important because regulatory genes tell hundreds of other genes when to turn on and off. So that means that when those are different, it totally changes when different genes turn on and off, leading to very different development. So we have regulatory genes that are quite different, that cause us to develop quite differently, which causes us to look quite a bit different than our cousins in the chimpanzee world. So there are 20 known fossil species of what we call hominins. Hominins are the primates that are more related to humans than they are to chimpanzees. Okay, hominins originated in Africa around 6 million years ago, and when we first see hominins showing up, what we see first is more and more bipedalism, standing on two legs, but their brains are still the size of a chimpanzee's. It used to be thought that we would have grown big brains at the same time we stood up, but we can see that they call this like mosaic evolution. We evolved different parts at different rates. So in this case, we evolved upright bipedalism. We did not yet have the brains we have today. Here we can see lots of different hominins here leading up to Homo sapiens. You can see Homo sapiens overlapped in time with some of these different cousins, including possibly Homo erectus, and definitely with our cousin Homo Neanderthales. And then this goes all the way down to some of these fossil fragments we know from about 7 million years ago. So lots of different hominins that were, once again, more closely related to us than to chimpanzees. So millions of years ago on this axis, and you can see the lifespan of these species is what these bars represent. So Homo sapiens have not been around all that long. So here's some of our early ancestors. We found footprints, and we have bones of them. So you can see this one here. Let's see if we can find that one on here. Here's Australopithecus Africanus. That's this one here that they're showing in that drawing there. And this is what we think they would have looked like. So there are some misconceptions about human evolution. People often think that we come from chimpanzees, basically, and that's not true. We share a common ancestor with chimpanzees. But just like birds don't come from crocodiles, right? But they're closely related to each other. They share common ancestry, but they went on different evolutionary trajectories. We share ancestry with chimpanzees, but we are not chimpanzees, right? So you can see here's modern humans, here's chimpanzees. We share an ancestor way down here. Before chimpanzees existed and before humans existed, we shared a common ancestor that split off, and then the genus Homo evolves, including Homo Neanderthales, the Neanderthals, and modern humans. Notice Neanderthals also share a common ancestor with us. We didn't evolve from Neanderthals, so that's worth noting there as well. And then here's the gorillas over here, for example. All right, So the earliest fossils in our genus, the genus Homo, these are from Homo habilis, and they're around 2 million, let's just say around 2 million years old. Homo habilis means handyman because this particular species could make tools. We know it could make tools. Stone tools have been found near the skeletons, so they called it handyman, Homo habilis. And later on, Homo Neanderthales evolved. I want to just mention this one because it lived at the same time as Homo Sapiens. They only went extinct around 28,000 years ago. That's not very long ago at all. They lived in Europe and they lived in the Near East. That was their habitat. And they left Africa before Homo Sapiens did. They had thicker bones. They had a larger brain than we had. That doesn't mean they were smarter. It's just that their brain size was bigger. They buried their dead. They made hunting tools. They, had a fairly complex society. And we now know that they had some babies with Homo sapiens. So this was some hybridization. There was hybridization going on here between the two species. Which is pretty interesting. Now, our species appears in Africa around 195,000 years ago, so not that long ago at all. All living humans are descended from African ancestors that showed up around 195,000 years ago or so. We can see here some early human art sketched into this rock here. Now, what's really interesting is, we as humans often group ourselves into races based on how we look. So have a look. Here's skin pigmentation in native populations around the world. So Native Americans and Europeans and then Africans and so on and so forth. You can see the pigmentation gets darker near the equator and so on and so forth. But if you don't look at pigmentation and you look at genes, how similar are we genetically, you'll see that Europeans and Africans are very closely related, and that out here in Eastern Asia we have very similar genetic commonality with the Native American population. So we can see that a lot of the stuff that we think of as dividing us is just skin deep. It's just what we see because we're a very visual animal. Now, I will point out that Neanderthals lived here and over this way when Homo sapiens left Africa. So what happens now, if you look at modern populations, Europeans have a lot of Neanderthal DNA. Folks from various parts of Asia have lots of Neanderthal DNA, but the folks that did not leave Africa, they do not have Neanderthal DNA. So we can see that biogeographical story written in our DNA. We can see that when humans left Africa, some of them mated with Neanderthals, and some did not, which is pretty interesting. Now, I myself have done a DNA test to see what my ancestry is because I thought it would be fun. And not surprisingly, I'm 99% European, French, German, and Czech, basically, Eastern European. But I actually do have a little bit of sub-Saharan African in me, which I did not know about, which means probably one of my great-grandparents was probably a slave in North America, and that was very humbling and surprising to find out. It's amazing what you find out when you test your DNA. Another thing I found out was that I am about 2.5% Neanderthal. I have less Neanderthal DNA than most Europeans, but I do have some Neanderthal genes. One of my ancestors, at least, was a Neanderthal, and that's also really interesting. This is what I found out using one of those DNA services you can get for about $100. So we are. That was a march through different kinds of animals and the major adaptations that allow them to survive. We could go into a lot more depth, and I'd love to, but this Bio 2 is a survey course where we cover some depth, but a lot of breadth of biology, so you can see which parts of biology you're most interested in. So that way later you can take the courses you want to become a specialist in the fields that you find most interesting. All right, so that will wrap up this chapter, and we're going to move on. In the next set of lectures, we're going to look at ecology and ecosystems, And that'll basically be the end of the semester. So thanks for joining me, and I will see you in the next lecture.